Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Absolute Batman issue 20, written by Scott Snyder, with art by Nick Dragotta, colors by Frank Martin, and letters by Tom Napolitano. Batman's life falls even more apart thanks to the Straw Man, as deep inside Grim Manor, the Joker cackles away in his cave, sucking the life from various fetuses in his special chair as he watches the monitors capturing Batman's turmoil. So again, what a way to open an issue, reminding everyone that this Joker feeds on weird baby creature things, literally sucking the life force from them to survive. We also get a better look at his bat cave this issue, and I love all of the small details he has. Like he has like the giant penny, the dinosaur, except his dinosaur is like a skeleton dinosaur. And then there's the small you'll blink and you'll miss details, like glass cases containing an owl mask, probably from the Court of Owls, since we know that Jack was the one who took them down. I hope we learn more about why this Joker has a cave outside of him assuming it's a big sick joke, inverse of Batman. He's taken everything that's usually Batman's, his Playboy life, the manor, the cave. Beyond that, what is the reason for the cave and why he has like giant penny and everything in that. I'm really intrigued to see why they gave him those sorts of things that we know Batman had from his adventures. Did Jack have those adventures too? And he did some sick twisted version of those adventures. Is really interesting. I just love like a special just deep dive into like the manor and the cave and everything, and explaining all of that is really cool. Elsewhere, Mayor Hill gives an interview about the big new Robin initiative and how Gothamites have been seemingly falling in love with the Robins. Hill thinks that people love it since it's very simple. The Robins are the opposite of Batman and are brave young men and women who have suffered a great loss, but they use that to motivate themselves to make the world a better place, whereas Batman uses violence and terror to lash out against the world. The mayor calls the Batman the coward prince of crime, which is a fantastic play on the moniker Joker usually gets called, which is the clown prince of crime. Bruce watches the report from his safe house, turning it off as he goes over the files Gordon gave him, files that revealed his entire life is a lie and Jack Grimm, along with Dr. Jonathan Crane, manipulated him and had his father killed, all to drive Bruce to become the Batman. The comms in his helmet go off as Barbara Gordon is trying to contact Batman through the helmet she has, wanting to know if he really did kill her father, but Bruce doesn't answer her, instead revealing that he has hung Jim's trench coat up in his safe house as kind of a reminder of his failure. I really like the Jim trenchcoat thing, being on displays. Kind of reminds me of like when, like a Robin would die, or, Batgirl or something would die, or someone in Bruce's life would perish and he'd like take their costume and put it on display in the Batcave. You have the Robin costume on display or something, related to, Jason Todd or something. It kind of reminds me of that. It's kind of like a symbol of like the thing that he failed at. And Jim's coat being there is that failure. It's now literally hanging over Bruce's head. Alfred knocks on the room's door, wanting Bruce to come outside since it's been days since he holed up in there. But Harley doesn't want to wait around, smashing down the door with a new hammer device that she has created. Bruce, however, is long gone though, having used a manhole to disappear down. As Jim wonders what they're going to do next, Harley is more interested in the files on the floor, realizing what they mean for Bruce and his life. Waylon meanwhile goes to see Edward, who's embraced his Riddler moniker, donning a question mark covered costume akin to one that kind of Jim Carrey wore during Batman Forever, along with a special helmet that links his mind directly into the computers. I never noticed this before about the Riddler, but the Riddler has these super long index fingers, kind of like needles. It's such a really weird design. It gives him such a creepy silhouette, along with like the big weird helmet he has connected to like the roof, and the skin tight suit he wears. It's just like a very creepy visage. Waylon wants to help Bruce since he's lost in his own head, but it looks like Edward is as well, ranting about riddles, which Waylon thinks is him just ignoring Bruce and that he's angry with him after what he did. Edward says he's not angry at all, he's just occupied and they all are now. Waylon though wants to figure out a way forward for all of them, including Bruce, as he asks where Harvey and the others have gotten to. Thanks to Edward being connected to the city via computers, he is able to pull up camera footage of Harvey Dent, now clad in a black and white suit, as he approaches a criminal who's partying with some strippers. He flips his poker chip as Edward knows there have been 39 killings lately, all thieves, killers and crooks set free because of Harvey's partnership with Batman. I love that this is how these guys are going to become villains. This is such a cool take on, Batman being directly or somewhat indirectly responsible for these people becoming the rogues, becoming Batman's rogues gallery and his villain. I like here Harvey's work as a DA is undone because of his partnership with Batman, which was very tenuous at best, and it's caused him to snap and kind of go after those he arrested and kind of take justice on them. It's kind of made him something akin to like the Punisher. He's kind of an anti-hero who's just like taking out the trash, more or less. Also, the scarred part of his body being blue and black kind of reminds me of the animated series version of Two-Face, which is so awesome. I've always liked that design because it's such a unique look for him. It's not just, he's got like partially burned face and you can see part of his skull or like his eye is bulging or something. I always like that blue. It kind of pops on him really well. Waylon wants to know what's going on with Ozzy, with Edward showing their friend wanting to go dancing. But ever since being crippled by Bane, he isn't the playboy he once was, and the Iceberg Lounge has all but closed down, with his own personal DJ leaving him for another club. Ozzy orders his assistant to get his dancing shoes since they are going to the other club called Cosmos, where his DJ is currently playing, and he's going to wear his best shoes out onto the dance floor, as well as take a little bit of C4 along with them. Waylon tires of Eddie making excuses and tells him that they aren't occupied, but Edward compares them all to cities that Bane sacked, and while they were burned to the ground, they aren't falling apart and are actually trying to put themselves back together now. And this is the way each of them feels right now. Waylon knows that he was burned down too, but Edward also knows that he was fixed thanks to the amulet that Batman got from Wonder Woman, which he's happy for, but he still feels part of his brain that isn't there and isn't fast enough or accurate anymore, comparing it to a riddle he can't solve, and it's driving him insane, so he's doing what he can to keep himself occupied. The idea that each of these characters' lives were so irrevocably changed by just associating with Batman, just merely being around him, is so interesting to me. Usually Batman, as I said before, is responsible for these guys becoming the villains. He's there when Joker falls into the chemicals, the crime that Harvey is prosecuting Maroni for is usually one Batman is tied to, and leads to the acid in the face. So there's always a tie to Batman, and I like that the tie this time is just, they're all friends. That is what has changed them into villains. And they're not really even villains per se. They're just people trying to cope with the change that has come into their lives. A change that is a big change. Harvey, had half his face and body melted away. Oswald was basically crushed like an accordion, so now he's crippled. Riddler is, missing part of his brain, so he's going kind of insane because he remembers things but can't. It's very sad. And yeah, Waylon is kind of like the only one who kind of made it out okay. Like, yeah, he's still part Killer Croc, but like he's doing better than most. And I like that Scott Snyder is using him as the character to kind of ground all of these characters together and trying to be the one to bring them all back to what they were. It's a very cool role for someone like Waylon Jones, who never really gets anything. Killer Croc is always there to be, the heavy that Batman has to fight, kind of a creepy, monster man that, creeps around the sewers and gives a great atmosphere in some comics. He's a big threat to Batman at some point in a comic, but he's never like this, where he's like an integral role in bringing people together. And I kind of like that. I kind of like that we've given these smaller characters, these smaller Batman villain characters, some actual life and some actual character. Waylon understands what Edward means, but they need to take back control of their lives. And Edward is glad that he understands the riddle that he was telling him when he first arrived, asking what they should do about Bruce. Sometime in the past, Falcone brings Bruce to see Blackgate, telling him that he's going to be spending time there to work off his debt to Sal. Bruce doesn't understand, so Falcone tells him that the judge is going to give him 6 months in Blackgate instead of 6, and in that time, Bruce is going to be Falcone's guy on the inside of Blackgate, as 10% of their business runs through the prison, and Bruce is going to learn the 100 or so ways to get things in and out of the jail. In the present, Batman glides over Blackgate, using the knowledge he learned while working with Falcone to enter the prison unseen, venturing inside to confront Joe Chill, demanding the killer tell him what he did was a lie. The terrified Chill tries to move into the back of his cell and call the guards, but Bruce grabs him with his cape talons. pulling him into the bars and revealing that the files he was given by Jim Gordon tell him of the shooting in the zoo, and how the science fair, the zoo, the winning project, and everything else was all just a setup that Chill was a part of, since he went to that zoo with a specific target, that target being Thomas Wayne. Batman knows that Bruce Wayne comes to the prison every month to talk with Joe Chill, looking for an answer as to why he killed his father Thomas, but Chill never says anything but mumbles and whispers. Batman knows that Bruce pores over tapes and evidence, trying to figure Chill out and all the forces that made him do this, but now he has learned that Chill was just some agent in some master plan against Bruce. Bruce trying to piece this together and make it make sense is great. There is a real sense of desperation to him. He just wants an answer to that one thing in life that he thinks he has control over, trying to figure Joe Chill out. He's got the guy in front of him, the guy who shot his father, he saw shot his father, and he just wants to know why, and he can't get that. And now we learn there's this big conspiracy about that, and about how that was all predetermined and set up. It kind of thrown Bruce for a loop, and it's kind of made him go a bit crazy. He's trying to still figure it out and trying to figure out what this whole thing is. It's great. It's such an interesting take on the whole Joe Chill, Bruce Wayne dynamic. Batman knows that Joe knows something he's not saying since he stopped talking to Bruce, but Batman never gets any answer since Joe begins screaming as he sees the Straw Man sitting on the other side of the cell, and this time Batman sees him as well. Straw Man lights a cigarette, telling Batman that he figured Jim Gordon was killed by Batman, or maybe it was just all too much for him and he couldn't handle it. Straw Man tells Joe to go and make his bed so he can have some time together with Batman, telling the hero that it's nice to finally get to see Bruce face to face after all these years. He gets why Bruce is angry about the Batman project, but it's because he doesn't know the real reason yet, and that's the best part. Scarecrow getting bumped up to being a bit more of a major Batman villain, like in the same league as the Joker, who he's basically the right-hand man to, is really cool. It's giving him a bit more to do than just, gas the city or gas Batman, trying to figure out his fears, stuff like that. It's getting him to fuck with Bruce's mind in an even better, more intimate way, and it's kind of like what they've been doing with Wayland in this book as well. Scott Snyder is giving all of these, I wouldn't say lesser known Batman villains because it's Killer Croc and fucking Scarecrow, but like characters who never really used to their full potential, I feel, and he's giving them something interesting. Batman wonders why he would ever listen to another of Jack Grimm's agents, but Strawman doesn't see himself as that. Or maybe he could be exactly that, and Bruce might be right, but Bruce might not ever know. But what he wants Bruce to know is that all of this is because of his mother and how she was a loyal member of the Court of Owls. Bruce lashes out at the man, unable to get to him thanks to the bars in his way, but Strawman stabs Bruce under the arm with his butterfly knife, wounding him pretty greatly. He kind of keels over a little bit from this one little stab under the arm. Batman knows that Strawman is just some liar, but the villain reveals that Gordon hid his mother's secret from him since he knew it would be too much for Bruce, and his mother has actually just ran off to the court again. However, he knows it probably didn't end well for her. Bruce begins thinking about his life and how back at the zoo he heard the cawing of crows from above the shooting, something Strawman all but admits was actually him. And as I said in my review of the last issue, if you actually go back to that first issue, you can see the crows are there. So this is not some like retcon or something. This is something that's been planned from issue 1, and that's what's really exciting about this. This has all been plot and predetermined, and I just love it. Strawman reveals that he and Grimm thought the Batman project would be funny since the Bat is the natural prey of the Owl, and it's why his life as Batman isn't just some project, it's all one big joke. That reveal, it's all a joke because Martha was part of the Court of Owls, is interesting. It adds a bit more than what I thought the Joker, wanting Batman to exist because he needs it. He can't function properly without a Batman and vice versa. But I do like that he's just going and doing it just for a laugh, and instead of Bruce joining the court, they turned him into something the court would inevitably destroy. I wonder if, since Dick Grayson is in this universe, he's one of the Robins, I wonder if he will eventually get involved with the Court of Owls too, since, they had that whole New 52 stuff that Scott Snyder actually did as well, with William Cobb, his great-grandfather, being part of the Court of Owls, so there is sort of like precedence for Dick Grayson joining the Court of Owls, and that would be an interesting sort of full circle moment moment for Scott there as well. As they talk, Batman takes note of Joe, who's tied a noose with his bedsheet around his neck and is getting ready to jump from his bunk. Batman tries to stop Chill, but Strawman doesn't want to save him, letting Joe hang himself. Batman fires his cape talon out to catch Chill under the arm, as Strawman talks about a farmer who feared tangible things that might come after his crops, things like pests and droughts and other things he could protect against. But these days, that same farmer is in the dark and fearing things too big for himself to comprehend, things like war, plague, global conspiracies, and the like. He doesn't think that that's fear like some people think. He thinks it's something newly grown and special. It's dread, and it's only a matter of time before they all hear it coming for them. He hopes Batman can hear the ticking coming for him as he slices Batman's cape, causing Joe to fall and break his neck. As he tells Batman that he's doing this because he just loves the dread and thinks it's wonderful. That's a really interesting way to look at the fear, or in this case, the dread that Scarecrow uses as his weapon. He's using things people cannot stop to fuel the dread. Things so out of people's control that they lose hope that it can never get better. He's not just, gassing someone and showing them their greatest fear, or, something that they fear to get them to like seize up or something. It's something that's, tangible. It's a bit of, social manipulation. It's a cool way to show his fear toxin, quote unquote, without it actually being, a traditional green gas blown into people's faces. I'm sure we probably will get some sort of gas. Maybe we've already seen it. He is smoking them cigarettes awful a lot when he's trying to like manipulate someone. Maybe there's something in, the smoke. But I like that the fear toxin in this is a bit more broader in that it's, him using social manipulation, among other things, to instill dread in people. Chill chokes to death in the noose as Batman swears to tear Strawman apart, but the villain takes that as his cue to leave, hoping Bruce takes care since there's so much more for him to discover, and it gets so much worse than he thinks. Strawman disappears in a flurry of crows as the alarms around the prison sound, prompting Batman to escape the oncoming jail guards. Sometime in the past, Falcone gives Bruce a bat, telling him that he did a good job in Blackgate and now he's graduating to the Bat. Bruce refuses to become some type of mob enforcer for Falcone, but the mob boss knows that the size Bruce is, he'll never actually have to use the bat, but everyone has to go through this stage and it's only a tool. There's nothing special about the bat. Now beyond the whole, it's a bat, Bruce is going to become Batman eventually, haha, get it. I feel like this is Snyder maybe hinting at Bruce beginning to think about how the bat, the symbol he's created around the city, doesn't mean anything now, or it's nothing special. It was something that he has found out is predetermined for him, as something that he did not create on his own free will. So maybe he doesn't want that symbol anymore. Maybe he's going to cast that symbol away. And because of that, it's got me thinking of two possible theories of what's happening, and they're both kind of silly and really out there, but I kind of like doing those theories. I think they're really fun to think about and theorize. So my first theory is that I reckon Bruce will eventually just do away with the Batman moniker and become Owlman. Now, just think about it for a moment. He's learned all of this Batman stuff was predetermined for him. He was never meant to become the Batman unless, Jack Grimm willed it. He didn't come up with it himself. It was not something that came to him in a dream or, where he saw the bat in the study or anything like that. It was all given to him, basically. It's manufactured. I could see him casting that aside and teaming with his mother and the Court of Owls, and, that's how he could become Owlman, adopting the Owlman name as a way of getting back at the Joker. He's becoming the predator to the prey he was meant to be. It is a bit, thin on terms of theorizing, but I kind of like the idea that, that'd be really damn cool if this Batman eventually becomes Owlman, but a good guy Owlman. We used to, the Earth 3 crime syndicate Owlman. I'd love to there be a good guy Owlman out there. My other theory is kind of the bit more of an obvious one, and that is he's going to take the Batman moniker and make it something completely different than what Jack envisioned. So wildly different that Jack loses interest or slips up and gives Bruce a chance at defeating him. I'm not entirely sure what that could be, because it's very clear that Jack wants a violent Batman because that's, fueling his own, campaigns against Batman. But I can't see Batman, or this Batman going the complete opposite direction, becoming, the Adam West Batman or something like that. The old chum, the power kapow sound effect sort of thing. I can't see it going that far in that direction, so I'm really intrigued to see if that's what it ends up being, with Batman deciding to make this Batman moniker something completely different, what that would be. Despite my theories as well, I do feel like the book is in for a massive shift in the coming issue. Something's going to change drastically about Batman, and I'm excited to find out exactly what that is. Back in the present, Batman contacts Alfred, telling him that Joe Chill has been killed. Before he can mention who by, the Robin Initiative surround Batman, telling the hero he is under arrest. Batman refuses to give up, diving into the clouds, and Jason Todd, Robin 2, spots Batman above the city and opens fire, lighting up the sky with artillery fire that shreds Batman's wings, causing him to come crashing down on this ground, where Duke Thomas and Stephanie Brown round up the hero, demanding that he stand down. Alfred warns Batman to get the hell out of there since he doesn't know what he's dealing with, but Batman doesn't listen, equipping his battle axe and readying for a fight with the Robins. So I really do love the bait and switch going on with this issue, where, you know, you think it's all going to be about the Robins, you know, the cover kind of alludes to that, and then bam, it's all about, you know, Batman's birthright and like what his life has been like, and how Strawman and Jack Grimm have just been tormenting him his entire life. It's great. It's kind of genius as well, because you front load the issue with all of that stuff. You kind of ramp up how Batman is getting more angrier and, you know, desperate, and then you drop him in front of the Robins who want to stop him. So you have like a Batman who is at his angriest, trying to be stopped by people who are effectively meant to be his wards, but aren't in this world. So I'm intrigued to see what he's going to do to these people in the next issue. I do like them blindsiding Batman like this at the end. You know, Batman's kind of in his own head dealing with some other stuff, so they're able to get the drop on him. And all their cool new suits look really cool. They all look like a Power Ranger team. I love Duke's suit, how it's like that one-wheel motorbike that transforms into his suit of armor. It's really damn cool. I'm intrigued to see how they are deployed in the next issue. Absolute Batman issue 20 broke open the big revelation of the Batman Project and what it is and why it existed, giving us some fantastic insight into how Bruce is handling it and how the Straw Man operates through dread and fear. I really like the idea of this new Scarecrow. He feels much more menacing than what we usually get, and I kind of like how Scott Snyder is kind of pumping him up into, you know, the big leagues, more or less. You know, he's second in command to the Joker in this universe and has had a more effect on Bruce's life than the normal Jonathan Crane ever had on Bruce's life. So I really like that we're making characters like him and Waylon Jones, the Killer Croc, have a bit more of a prominent role both in Batman's life and Bruce Wayne's life. It's really interesting. Bruce's friends as well, you know, speaking of Waylon, get a lot to do in this issue, and I like how it sets them all up into their villain arcs, I guess, or anti-hero arcs in the case of Two-Face. I really like how them turning to crime is kind of like a coping mechanism or a way to distance themselves from what Bruce is doing as Batman. It's an interesting way to turn them into his rogues, and I cannot wait to see the next issue with the Robins turning up. There's just so much happening in this issue and in this book so far, and I'm loving every minute of it. I'm going to give this issue a 10 out of 10.